Welcome, everybody, to the Minions of the Zoo Tuesday edition over here on the Skep Talk channel instead of the Minions channel as usual. But with me, I have my trusty crew of Minions, Prospero.
Hello.
Blind Press channel as usual.
I'm actually here.
With me, I have my trusty crew.
And we can hear ourselves twice.
Yeah,
Hello,
I'm really good
Yes.
at. I'm really high tech. Yeah.
Hello, us. Anyway, I'm actually here. Isn't that amazing?
It's amazing. Blind Press is here. Jenna is here.
Hola.
And Harry Channel joins us this evening.
Howdy.
As usual, I hope all of you are having fun getting back to normal. Here in the winter has come to Texas. We got below 32 degrees one night, actually several nights, and even into the 20s once. It's just been brutally cold. I do not see how people deal with this the kind of temperatures you actually deal with. 20 degrees, man, we just pussy out completely down here.
It killed the bugs. Just look at it that way.
I would like to make a statement here.
What's
It is currently -6 degrees Celsius with a real feel of -13.
That's just wrong.
Yeah.
Wrong. Yeah, it's like -25.
It's about 20. It's about 20 Fahrenheit here. So it's ugly and going to continue to be ugly. And we have a choice of either an S storm this weekend, possibly. They still don't know. Followed by another one 5 days later, or we're going to be hit with a polar vortex, which will keep the second one from showing up. I'm kind of like cheering for the snowstorm at this point.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I know we had a winter where we got hammered repeatedly by the polar vortex, and you don't want to know what my heating oil bill was.
Oh.
That following fall, I had a gas furnace put in.
I bet you did.
It was that bad. It was like $1,200 a month for
That's
4 months.
That is horrifying.
And
Wow.
I think the total season ran $6,000.
$1,200?
Yes. To keep the house at 70.
Wow.
You know, I'm sorry, I'm old.
It's not supposed to work it's not supposed to work that way.
I love these people who are like, I keep the house at 64. And it's like, that's really good for you. I need to be able to feel my feet.
Yeah, my mother, when we lived with her, kept her, in the summer, her air conditioning, she had the house at like 19 Celsius.
Oh, God.
And we lived in the basement.
Oh, my God.
First. And freaking, we had just had the oldest. Right? So we were like getting him to sleep with little caps on him. And like trying to swaddle him, and he was one of those babies that both of my babies, you tried to swaddle these kids and they were like, ha, fuck that, puh, you know, just kick and flail, and they would be unswaddled in like 30 seconds, and then they'd be cold, and then you'd swaddle them, and then they'd kick it off again, and I lost, Pincolo and I lost more sleep re-swaddling a sleeping child that was cold.
Yeah.
Then
You know what you did.
Care of an awake baby.
Do you know what you did wrong?
Huh?
What I did, my kids used to kick the swaddling off too, until I started swaddling them in duct tape. That stuff works.
I don't know how many times Pincolo was like, I'm gonna duct tape this freaking receiving blanket to this child.
Well, you know, it's funny though, because even to this day, even though I really, really don't like my feet being cold, if my legs cannot kick free of the covers, I cannot sleep.
This is really interesting. I have to share one of the most esoteric pieces of knowledge I possess. And that is the fact there are two kinds of people in the world. And this was actually proved out by some physiologists. There are people who can stand having the covers pushed down on their toes. Think of lying on your back. There are people who can stand having the covers pushed down on their toes, and people who cannot. And it's a bright line between people.
Yep.
People who can tolerate it, not short of injuring level pain will not get them to object. And the people who can't stand the covers pressing down on their toes, and I'm one of those people, I can't even have them touching that part of my toe in that position. It's really interesting, and they don't really know why we're wired that way.
I'm okay with the feet thing, but if you try to tuck my arms so that I can't move,
Oh no.
I panic.
Oh yeah, that's like
I freak out.
no,
Like,
that's awful. That's
and,
claustrophobic.
Like I'm the same way. Like if both kids come into the bed and I somehow end up squashed between them and Pink Hollow, I'm like, and then there's blanket.
But if the blanket is tight over your toes,
yeah, I'm okay with that. But
does that bother you? How about you, Prospero? Does that bother you?
No, I can't stand it.
You can't
I absolutely can't stand it. I when I make a bed, I do hospital corners.
Yeah.
But
you leave the back out.
I
leave
pull
some slack
it all apart when I go to sleep.
Oh, really? Okay.
No,
So
I
My
need
feet
to
have
be
to
able
be
to
able to-
kick my legs free of the covers.
Gotcha.
I don't like that sense of being enveloped like that.
See, I
Yeah,
always
I'm
just
the
stick
same-
my
same
one
way.
leg out the side.
Yeah, well,
if I need to, like
That's your radiator leg.
yeah, that's my If I'm hot and I just stick my one leg out the side for a few minutes and then I'm okay. But I have to generally keep my feet covered because this is a stupid reason, but when I was about 9 or 10, I watched the very first Evil Dead movie. And that movie, there's a scene where one of the girls gets stabbed in the ankle with a pencil. And since then,
my ankles must be protected.
I have to protect my feet when I go to bed. Even though the scene didn't happen in a bedroom. It happened in the dining, like in the middle of, like in the living area of the cabin. I don't care. My feet need to be protected because there's gonna be a demon that's gonna come and stab me in the fucking leg.
Do you find that you have a preference for graveyards over running cars?
Oh my god, that guy co-ed. That's
I love that.
funniest Halloween ad
Maybe
ever.
we should get into the running car. Are you crazy?
Yeah.
I
I
love
love-
that commercial.
I love the fact that the dude with the chainsaws is like rolling his
He's
eyes
disgusting.
like they're not even worth killing. You know?
See, had TikTok been a thing back when Pink Hollow and I lived near a cemetery, we totally would have done that. Because we used to love walking. It was like, because some cemeteries have this feeling of just despair around them, right? And some cemeteries are very nice and calm and peaceful. And we happened to live near a cemetery that was the latter. And we used to go walking all the time through there. Just like, let's roll a joint and go for a walk in the graveyard.
I'd love to know what your reactions would be to some of the cemeteries in New Orleans.
Well, there was one cemetery we went to. It was in I think there was some of Pincalo's family that was buried there. And I just lost it. Like I completely melted down we were there for about 10 minutes. And it was just I was in tears. I was just I didn't have any connection to that place or anything. I had no family buried there. But it was just the aura of the place. It was just so sad. It was just totally different from the other side, like the one that we live by. It was just, oh, it was such a sad place.
History creates amazingly tender mercies at times. Across the street from where my father and grandfather, and the two most important people to my mom, were buried. Not long after Dad died, a man erected a mausoleum for his wife. His last name was Peters. Her name was, or she was called, Diamond.
Aw.
So there, yes, but you've got to realize Diamond Peters.
That sounds tacky.
Think about
Does
it
sound
for a minute.
tacky, yeah.
Well, you know,
Oh.
Or DP. Deep
Peters
penetration.
is a euphemism on top of
Oh.
it. Okay, and then there was going to be a fountain in front, but apparently they couldn't get approval that was in the shape of a diamond. And the amount of hagiography that was going on at that, my mother and I would go over, flop the flowers down on our beloved's graves, and then trot across the street to see what other obscenity was going on. They would go inside the mausoleum and erect a Christmas tree.
Oh,
They
good
would go
Lord.
inside and erect Easter trees.
Mm.
It was absolutely amazingly tacky. And it was one of those things that I actually wanted to thank this guy for creating this diversion for my mother. Because my view of graves is not as painful as hers.
Or painful, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know that the people are gone. I don't like seeing their names carved. I mean, that does bring sorrow.
Yeah.
But it was more or less, I used to dread going out there to do the Christmas and Easter flowers every year. And then this mausoleum got put up, and it was like, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Peters.
Thank you for the
Distraction. The amazing distraction. And then somebody spilled India ink on our headstone. And it couldn't, they were outlining the name of the headstone next to us, and they spilled it all over it. And short of having the granite sandblasted, which would have been about as expensive as having an entirely new granite headstone carved,
I would have sued the crap.
we couldn't, interestingly enough. The cemetery said you'd file it under your homeowner's insurance because it's property that you own.
Wow.
And at that point, my mother said, I'm moving everybody to the columbarium and I'm putting them on the top floor to give them a leg up. And so on the 5th level of a columbarium is where everybody is. And I don't even go out there because there's no place to leave flowers. Because I said, am I supposed to get a ladder? My mother said, this way you don't have to worry about coming out here. I was like, all right.
Because people, like, for me, it's remembering them, right?
Absolutely.
It's remembering the good and not, like, the bad, too, right? Because without the bad, you wouldn't have the good.
Right.
Like,
To paraphrase South Park, without evil there'd be no good, so it must be good to be evil sometimes.
exactly.
Oh, yeah. The juxtaposition is what we recognize. You know, we know good from not good.
I love that you know what song that's from. It just makes me happy.
That's so sad.
So
There's so much room.
babies burping, flowers bloom. We're
God.
chuckling over an old South Park movie. I remember the first time I saw that movie. I just went, I have to see this movie again.
See, when
I missed too much stuff.
when this movie came out, I was 10.
Oh.
And I was allowed to watch the show. Like the weekly show. Right? Because the weekly show started when I was 8. And my parents always let me like watch pretty much whatever I wanted because we talked about it. right? And if there was something that they thought I was too young for, they gave me, like, here's why, and here's when you can watch it. But there were so few things on that list that, like, because we just discussed it. And so when the movie came out, I was like, oh, I really want to see it, right? And I had been allowed to watch The Evil Dead. I had been allowed to watch Psycho. I had been allowed to, like, all this stuff. And Mom and Dad said, no, you can't watch that till you're 14. And I went, why? You guys let me watch the show. And Dad, even, because Dad was even the more lenient of the two. And even Dad was like, no. I'm sorry.
How old were you when you got to see it? Finally?
I was 14. They on my 14th birthday, Dad was like, "Here, come sit down."
I showed it to my daughter when she was 10 or 11.
And so when they showed it to me when I watched it at 14, I turned to my dad and I went, "Yeah." Yeah. You're right. Because he's like there, because he goes, do you see what I'm, because he tried to tell me when I was younger, he goes, there's going to be jokes there that you're not going to get. Like when you're, like, even though we talk to you about most stuff, like as a 10-year-old, you're just not going to understand the jokes, right?
No.
And even at 14, there were some jokes, like, Stan looking for the clitoris the whole movie, right?
You're right, exactly.
That one I didn't get at 14, right?
Right.
But, like, he was right. Like, Dad, you're totally right. Like, I get it. And then I went down to my room going, shut your fucking face, Uncle Papa.
Yes, I mean, honest to God, who didn't walk out of the theater to their car singing that? And, I mean, it's just, well, I mean, I'm sure plenty of people didn't, but the Korean I did number among them. Because it was just like, I'm never going to get that song out of my head.
My grandfather got so angry because both of my uncles found and downloaded the South Park Christmas album.
Oh, boy.
Because they did a Christmas special with all sorts of songs, and then they put the songs on an album. And it pissed my grandpa off so bad. Like, he was like, if it got to the point, I think Grandpa actually destroyed the album when nobody was around because it made him so angry. Because South Park, I don't know what it was about South Park, but it just triggered him so bad. And because it triggered him so bad, the rest of us just kept pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. Because, like, the song, like, hey there, Mr. Where they go through all the different religions. Hey there, Mr. Hinduist. Merry fucking Christmas. That one. Or Kyle teaching the dreidel song to Ike. And, they all show up and they start, Cartman, choose, play stupid games. Like this. It's like Grandpa just kept getting more and more angry, so Dad and me and my two uncles would just sit around the table singing along with the album.
Those musical episodes are very popular. Those are popular. They're the most popular episodes by far.
The Mormon episode is funny.
That I've seen. The Mormon episode is one of the best episodes ever. I mean,
and it's even.
Do I want to know?
That's the dumb.
The best part about it is, Jenna, is that I think it's Trey. Is it Trey or Matt? One of them is actually a practicing Mormon.
Practicing or apostate?
No,
I thought he was. Is he?
He's not. Neither one is practicing. I promise you.
Is he apostate?
I've seen too many.
I thought he was still Mormon. I
don't think so.
Anyway, but
Trey Parker and Matt Stone are two of the most cynical people.
I know that he was. I know that one of them were raised, at least raised Mormon. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that might well be that might well be
And
true.
but it's really fun because the whole the Mormon family is just so like is so happy all the time. It's like it's so nice to meet you, and I could just picture every time I watch that. Now that I know Jenna, it just makes me giggle because Jenna is so antithetical to that South Park Mormon family. It's just
They were Molly Mormons, so it's,
Yep. Molly Mormons, the worst thing to happen to Mormonism since Molly Mormons. My brain's not completely on. I couldn't come up with a good thing.
Hey, that's fine. So I have an amusing story. Would you like to hear it?
Certainly.
So we're of course the schools are closed here.
You're kidding.
Nope, I'm not. The schools are closed, and apparently they're reopening on January 17th. Nobody believes it. They keep telling us that, but nobody believes it. This is what happens when you lie to the citizenry too many times. So yesterday, my oldest, he started asking me, he goes, "Where's the government, Mommy?" And I'm like, "Why?" Right? And he goes, "Because I want to go there and tell them that I want to go back to school. And I want all of my class to go with me and everybody from all the different classrooms to go with me. And tell the government that we need to go back to school." And at this point, I'm filming my reaction to this, right? Because I can tell this is going somewhere. And so after he says all this, he goes, "So, who's gonna come with me and kick some government butt?" And I'm just like, I didn't teach him that. I swear to God, I didn't teach him that.
But isn't it sad
And-
that the 7-year-old is smarter than the...
Right? But and
Goodness.
after I calmed down from my hysterical laughter, and after he followed me around for a good 10 minutes going, "I was just kidding, Mommy." I'm like, "So, buddy, what we actually do when we're upset with the government is
You're raising
When
a fine young
when it-
libertarian
when
there.
it comes time, we vote." And we hopefully we pick the best person to do the job that we ask them to do. And if they don't, then we just have to keep trying again and keep voting for different people. We don't actually go and kick the government. I'm sitting there going, "No, we are not raising Che Guevara here. Thank you very much. This is not what's going to happen."
I like his idea of going to the government and saying, "Open
I
the
was
schools."
I was happy with the first thought. I was like, "Okay, we'll go have a good peaceful demonstration." And then he's like, "Let's go kick the government's butt." And I'm like, I don't know where he learned that.
has he been listening to Eeyore?
I don't know.
Because I mean, at least he didn't say it on the 5th of. At least he didn't say it on the 5th of November, honey.
I am slightly scared because he has been using my account to watch like his let's plays and shit. So I'm like,
Canadian
always-
government
He's
He's
is
been
gonna come
watching
in.
Viva Fry. You
I
know?
always check my watch history after he's done on YouTube. I'm like, "What have you been watching, child?"
By the way, I wanted to relate to you, first of all, that Matt Stone and Trey Parker are both atheists, and but Stone summed up his views with a comment regarding politicians. He describes himself as libertarian. He says, I hate conservatives, but I really fucking hate liberals. It reminded me so much of me. It's
Yeah.
That sounds like something he would
right,
say.
right where I come down. So anyway,
I hate
that's fine.
conservatives, but I really fucking hate liberals.
Yeah, that's the Republicans would be the worst, except they're Democrats. You know, that's
Well,
that.
Yeah, I don't want anybody to take my liberty away from me. I want as much choice as I can possibly have. When government does something, I want the government that is closest to me, that is most likely to be in line with my interests, in accord with me, my local government, to make as many of those decisions as is practical.
Yeah, make John Stuart Mill.
Libertarianism isn't hard to understand.
Make John Stuart Mill great again. Well, I mean, pragmatism married to liberty, to maximize liberty. You know,
Yep.
it's not complicated. If
The
you
problem-
look at the philosophers that they used, primarily Hobbes, because of the importance of rule of law versus a lawless society, which is why when you run into libertarians who are like, we don't need to have any fucking laws, man, it's like, yeah. Good luck, anarchists.
Those are lulbertarians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, you don't even know the underpinning philosophy of the Enlightenment to even call yourself a libertarian. If you haven't even just done some basic Locke, some Hobbes, a little Mill, you know, little Montesquieu to understand the structure of government.
Well, I can devil's advocate the hell out of this, because this actually, I think that people believe what they want to believe, right? And they find like-minded people to sort of form a team. And most of the stuff where you sort of try to bring up lists of Enlightenment philosophers is often window dressing to add credibility to the movement. And I say this keeping fully in mind that if you look at like modern neo-pagans, all of them will try to come up with some narrative that describes how their roots go back hundreds, if not thousands of years. When in reality, it's just a bunch of people that sort of said, oh yeah, The Craft was a good movie. Why don't we hang out and do this thing? But every group of people who have like a faction does this to one degree or another, which is not to say that there aren't intellectuals who don't actively go out and try to build some kind of foundation for what they're putting forward. So you don't just look like a bunch of idiots who meet every Sunday to talk about something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think that to a very large degree, everybody craves that pedigree. And for like a person who shows up and is just like very unfettered by news channels, right? They haven't been fed a bunch of propaganda. They just know what works and what doesn't. And they say, I just want the government to sort of leave me alone. I don't think it matters if they know about Hobbes or Hume or Locke or any of that stuff.
Unless they're spewing anarchism.
Well, if they're spewing anarchism, telling them that a 17th century philosopher had a particular opinion is not going to change their mind.
No, and the interesting thing is telling them that there is an extant anarchy, nor has there been a successful anarchy. You know, because they love to talk about Iceland, and they'll talk about the magistrate system of Ireland 1,100 years ago, and I'm like, so what happened to it? They were conquered.
Telling people that anarchy won't work is like telling people that communism won't work. Oh well, they just didn't do it. Right.
I know.
You got to do more than just say it won't work. You have to actually sort of demonstrate. Like when I'm arguing with somebody, and I'm arguing to convince. I'm not arguing to score points or do whatever. I'm arguing to convince somebody of something. You know, you find some amount of common ground, and then you just say, okay, and I know what you're against. Now tell me what you're for. And you start working through examples like, how exactly would this work? And it usually doesn't take particularly long with most people to get them to the point where they realize that they're talking complete shit. Anarchism is not a hard thing to knock down. What they're really saying is, I don't like having the boot on my neck, and anything has got to be better than this. And they may not be wrong, but you don't want to run around being a libertarian saying, you know, I should have the right to throw my keys to my 5-year-old to tell them to drive to the pharmacy to get me free heroin. That kind of argument is just stupid.
What?
As long as the child can buy free cigarettes for herself.
Yeah.
Fair.
And if the child crashes into somebody, then that's a thing. But the government shouldn't, you know, they can be punished for that. But the government shouldn't have the authority to stop them from doing some horrible thing, no matter what that thing is.
Yeah, right.
And then you get into these conversations of, well, you know, it only takes one gas station with a leaking gas tank to ruin the water that 100,000 people drink. You don't understand the way the world works. Right. I'm not in favor of big government either, but I think that possibly having standards for things like tanks that hold gasoline above the water table, you know, where people get the drinking water, it might not be the worst idea, because you can't undo that.
Of course, there are obvious, you know, agreements that you make just to live in society. You know, that you won't walk down the street and shoot people. That's the first and most basic agreement you probably make. And yes, you do have, you know, I say I'm a libertarian, but I'm very much in favor of outfits that are able to keep standards that apply to, you know, whatever scope. If the standard is something that is local, it should be run by local government. But if it's something like gas stations, for instance, which are largely homogenous across America, that's something that's appropriate at the federal level. The problem is that when agencies come into being and they, you know, what happens is reality moves on, but that picture that was taken in time that led to the creation of this agency has changed, because life's a moving picture. Agencies and laws are essentially trying to, they're static. They're not dynamic. They're unchanging, and that inability to adapt to a changing environment is a lot of what's wrong with what our government is and the way we run it.
Well, because it's gotten so large, it's become sclerotic.
Oh, right.
Yeah, the enormous number of archaic laws that still remain on the books, because nobody has decided to take the first year. You know, I'd love to see a governor come into office and say, the legislative agenda for the first year, barring any major emergencies within the state, is going to be for the legislature to strike
old bad law.
We're going to clean up the books, and it would be so refreshing, because by and large, particularly in years where there is a windfall from the year before, where you could just roll a budget straight over, you know, without having to have most of your legislative session tied up in budgetary arguments. We'll get to that. We're good. You know, fiscally, the state of the state is sound. So we're good. What we're going to do is purge the books of the archaic laws. And you would go back and you would find that spitting on a sidewalk on a Sunday on the sunny side of the street got you X amount of fine, and that to do it on the shady side of the street got you a higher fine. You know, there would be
it's
very
it's not just obviously insane laws. You know, like you know, any horseless carriage must be preceded by a man with a lantern. 10 feet in front and 10 feet in back. It's not those. It's the Rural Electrification Commission. It's getting rid of those guys.
It's swaths of agencies that have become duplicative.
Right.
But that's somebody's job, Skep. You can't get rid of that.
Learn to code.
And it's not giving $18 million to a South Dakota museum that's in the middle of nowhere that no one ever goes to, and it's closed most of the time.
Mm.
Yeah, but millions and millions of dollars have been sunk into this thing.
Yeah. It would be
just
nice.
That. Just get rid of that.
I'd like to see a governor start it, if you understand what I'm saying. Only because if a governor could do that, basically suggest and get the agreement of a legislature to direct their focus on state laws, it would draw federal attention from citizens. I don't mean the government. The government would plots, because it would be like, shit, they're coming for us next. But it would be an idea that could spread. I mean, it could just be a major city.
Yeah.
They're not going to do this,
well,
because they like, I mean, really like having the ability to, once they've decided that they want to do something with you, to mess with you, that they know there's got to be something they can throw at you. Mm-hmm. There's always some antiquated law that they can use that you've broken that gives them authorization, a search warrant to go in and go on a fishing expedition. Right. And if you put it under domestic terror of any sort, you can just hold people without telling them what they did. And while you're poking through all their stuff, then you can figure out what you want to charge them with.
Yes,
Good thing we passed that law.
Yes, the Levantine Beria School of governance. Yeah, it's
Beria, the warm personality.
Yeah,
well, Trump did this with regulation. I mean, he did actually say, for every regulation you come up with, you need to get rid of 2 of them.
Yeah,
and that's exactly the right thing to do. And that's what a not government person, somebody who wasn't a professional politician, would do. And a professional politician's not going to do any of the stuff you're suggesting, even though it makes perfect sense.
That's one of the reasons that the swamp was so upset with him. I mean, he knew how Leviathan-like it was, and the tentacles extend into everything. That backing some of that away, and the duplicative nature of it, that you have regulations stemming from the Postal Service, the Treasury Department, the Department of Agriculture, but all dealing with the same thing, which is positively ridiculous. Why do you have 8 laws over one crime? But it's named in separate ways, which is why you see prosecutors pile charges on, or fishing expeditions, as you said, in subpoenas. Because if we comb through the regulations, we can get them on the postal code or tax evasion. They got Capone on tax evasion.
But do you remember when first-year law students were taught in criminal procedure that you don't stack charges?
Well, when did that cease? Oh, I don't know. Probably in the 1970s it began to cease.
I think you might be right. Maybe the 80s.
That's when they went to shit. When the Trial Lawyers Association began to get control, all kinds of problems started occurring in the law. And they started worrying. And then you had the feds.
We can totally regulate ourselves.
Yeah, the feds in the state. Yeah, take that, anarchists. The feds in the state will line up for varying bites at an apple.
Yeah.
And that's, at what point does this become double jeopardy? This has at least been coming up more in Supreme Court cases about jurisdictional double jeopardy. Because if there has been a state trial, there have been all kinds of utterances made in that trial. They can then be held against somebody in federal. What are you talking about?
It really turns it into an unfair meat grinder.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And our drug laws are insane because of this.
The defendant has to prove himself innocent over and over and over again.
Which is not and has not been since the first quarter of the 19th century. Considered precedent for legal practice. Innocent until proven guilty is a much more recent concept than a lot of people recognize.
Well, I think it came in with the Magna Carta.
Yeah, it's barely 200. It's barely 200 years old if it's that old. And it is critical to protect, because you look at the Italian legal system, which is positively insane. They'll take people to court 5, 6, 7, 8 times over the same charge. When Ayrton Senna died,
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, oh boy. They tried with the chick from Washington State who was charged with murder of her roommate. They tried to go for multiple ones, but Williams Racing,
Amanda Knox.
yeah, thank you. Williams Racing ended up in court multiple times over Ayrton Senna's death. We didn't prove that part. We're going to go for this. And I mean, that most of that should have been handled in civil proceeding anyway, not in criminal proceedings. It was a
it's interesting interesting thing you brought up, and presumption of innocence really means that the prosecution has the obligation to prove each element of an offense someone is charged with, each element of it beyond a reasonable doubt. It's each element or some other level of proof, depending on the system. And that the accused bears no burden of proof at all.
Correct.
And it's you hear presumed innocent until proven guilty. And I was looking that up. That was coined by the British lawyer Sir William Garrow.
Yep.
He lived from 1760 to 1840, and that was during a 1791 trial at the Old Bailey. Garrow insisted that accusers be robustly tested in court. An objective observer in the position of the juror must reasonably conclude that the defendant must almost certainly committed the crime. In 1935, in its judgment of Wilmington versus the Director of Prosecutions, Public Prosecutions, the English Court of Appeal would later describe Garrow's articulation as being the golden thread connecting both the criminal burden of proof and the presumption of innocence within the web of English criminal law. So if you want to know where it really came from,
yeah,
it came from this guy, Bill Garrow, as I used to call him, because I knew him. And but it's interesting. It was first articulated ever in modernity by a French cardinal, and he was also a lawyer. He was one of these,
a Jesuit.
Jesuit type. And he said, "Item quilbet presumptor innocens, nisi probatur innocence." A person is presumed innocent until proved not innocent, is actually literally what that says. Based on the legal inference that most people are not criminals.
Mm-hmm.
I find it interesting that coming from France.
Yeah.
But, at any rate, yeah.
What period of time? What period of time in France?
That was when was Lemoyne? Lemoyne was later. I'll tell you when.
Because that would matter.
Are you running low on RAM and don't have money to buy it? You're gonna love this video. I'm about to show you the closest thing to downloading more RAM. If you have an available USB 3.0 thumb drive lying around, insert it into your computer. Remember, it's gonna stay there permanently. Go to My Computer and right-click on a USB drive, then go to Properties. Click on the ReadyBoost tab. Choose the option that says Dedicate this device to ReadyBoost. Then press OK.
Oh, it's still doing it. God, terrible. I was trying to set up something for you that I thought would amuse you.
That was very cool.
I found this channel that had that does these videos on how to make your computer better. And what they said is how you can download RAM. So what you do is if you don't have enough RAM in your PC, you get a USB 3.0 drive and you stick it in your computer. Now you're going to just leave it there, Skep. Don't be tempted to pull it out. Okay. And then you're going to go into the control panel and say, I want to dedicate this USB 3.0 thing to swap. So you're going to make up for the RAM. You don't have it in your computer.
I
By
don't-
swapping pages of less used memory out to a thumb drive.
I don't know
That's what
anything about
does.
computers, but I know that this is bullshit.
Well,
Okay,
it's
there-
about 100 times too slow.
It's about 100 times too slow. And it reminds me of something Seymour Cray once said, because Seymour Cray was the inventor of the Cray supercomputers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the founder of the
yeah.
company and a brilliant genius.
Yep.
I figured Skep needed some cheering up, so that's sorry about the ad. It's not
that's
supposed to be
absolutely hilarious.
not supposed to be playing in the background. I thought I had everything muted, but I suck. And Seymour said famously, "You can't use what you don't got," and
Yeah.
that was his thing. You know, pretending you have more memory than you think you do is bad enough when you're swapping pages out to a disk. But the idea of using a thumb drive as
A
swap
USB, yeah, that's what
is
I thought.
insane. Not to mention the fact that they're typically not that durable anyway. So
That's the other thing is you will wear the thing out. You
wear the thing
thermally
completely
nuke the
out.
thing. Oh, that's
it's
funny.
It's the dumbest thing ever, because you will like basically wear holes in the medium in a sense.
Wait, yeah, yes, but yeah, literally, actually.
But this is the
Literally.
big one. It was really cheap. Yeah, it's because you can only write to that particular sector 10,000 times before it fails, and then you basically have your memory failing, and you wonder why your computer's not working.
That's
Cool.
you know
That's the
is
formula for success.
that is absolutely wild that
That's
somebody
a
is.
formula for your success, because then they'll call you and, why is my RAM not working? I don't understand.
Oh,
Help
it's
me."
working. It's just working very, very slowly.
Jedi Ghost Bear said it reminded him of the blinker fluid gag.
Yeah.
Like your flu.
Bucket
No,
of
it is
steam.
very
I
much
love
like
that.
that. But yeah, don't no. This don't. Everybody wants to be famous, right? You know,
Yeah.
so like
You
everybody
cannot download RAM.
they think
Wow.
that if there's enough hustle and they put together the right kind of thumbnails and they just post crap like this over and over again, that they're going to somehow find the magic thing in the YouTube algorithm that's going to make them into some big successful channel.
Well, you know, what did Theranos do? Theranos had everything except a product. You know,
Yeah.
and the way and here's what that Elizabeth Holmes, this is what she did wrong. Really, what she did wrong was she looked at providing the product as just a fulfillment item. It is of no more importance than the accounting part of the problem, or the public relations, or the marketing, or whatever it is. It's just fulfillment, and that's what she lost track of the fact that different parts of a business are much more important than other parts. If you don't have a product, it doesn't matter what kind of marketing you can do. It doesn't matter what kind of capitalization effort you mount. None of that stuff matters. And you know, anyway, I just wanted to get that out there, that was the
That's a generous view of her, actually.
well, I actually think that's what she got caught up in, and I think she was psychologically damaged to begin with, and that when things went off the rails, she simply what is it called when you faint from because you just can't stand where you are, you just want to be someplace else, and you just blink out of existence. It's a form of syncope. It's like dissociative syncope or something like that.
Bidening?
Anyway,
I don't know. What is that called?
It is a
I
I think
Yeah,
it's just
but-
evil.
yeah, I think it is Bidening. I believe
Bidening.
that's or
Yeah.
Brandoning. Brandoning
Brandoning,
is
yeah.
a slang for it. Brandoning.
Yeah,
Branding.
but it's a dissociative event.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she might be more of a sociopath than you're
She's evil.
crediting
She just
her
could.
with.
She could not face the reality. You talk about cognitive dissonance. She got slammed with cognitive dissonance like you can't believe. When you slam a sociopath, a narcissistic sociopath like Holmes with that kind of a thing, she'll snap. I'm surprised that she's not gibbering and peeing in a corner someplace.
Well, she was still banking on her narcissism.
That'll come when has she been sentenced yet? Or is the trial?
It's
still
going.
happening?
This is something we'll probably talk about on Saturday, but her sentencing is not supposed to happen until September.
Good God.
Yeah, the gibbering and peeing in the corner will come when the sentence happens.
Well, a lot can happen between now and September. I think just
Like
kind of
appeals.
hoping that everybody will just sort of forget that it was there. Like,
Wait, is
There's-
she being held until
no, she's
September,
out on.
or is she
she's out on
free
bail,
to?
$500,000.
She's under
So
only
she's
cognizance.
free to torture others.
She could get 80 years in prison. That's the statutory max.
They're giving her
she
time
can
to
get.
disappear.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't think
Disappear
that's the
like
play.
Hillary, or disappear like leave the country.
Who knows?
I
I'm
think.
sure they took her passport.
Yeah.
Like
well,
that matters.
She
Yeah,
can't get
that's-
another one.
when you have enough money, it doesn't matter. Her I can't remember if it's her husband or her boyfriend, who she sealed the deal by having a kid.
Yep.
So
Husband, she's married.
I think there's a good chance. Well, Skep has been saying this all along that she's not going to see jail.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's disgusting.
I'm not.
Why?
I'm not so sure, but I'm beginning to think Skep might be right. Damn it.
Yeah, it's
I-
disgusting.
why
I
don't
hope
you
against.
see
I hope
jail?
against. I hope against hope too. But for one thing, she's a woman. She's
Yes.
in California. This woman has had none of the advantages that white men have. White men have life handed to them, $1 million checks as soon as they're born,
Yep.
and it just gets better from there.
Mm-hmm.
Women are beaten into submission as soon as they're born, and beaten constantly.
Yeah, haven't you
by
seen
life
Handmaid's
and
Tale?
everything.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
the Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah,
Worse than that. That would be heaven compared to what women actually go through.
the
day to day.
subjugation that she endured.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And Amy Coney Barrett is the worst. She's practically the one holding the whip.
Yep.
Oh
No,
yes,
that's-
because she's
For
been
heaven's
subsumed.
sakes.
She's been
She's been
subsumed by her.
surrogate.
Well, yeah, she's been subsumed by her husband's identity, and therefore, is a wolf in sheep's
Internalized misogyny.
clothing.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just
Isn't
driven with it.
old Lizzie, didn't she con $9 billion out of people?
Gee whiz, something like that.
Well, it depends on whether she believed what she was saying or not. and that's where the mind reading gets into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
And wear
but-
all black and talk like she was a man?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting synopsis of it. There's a lot more to it, obviously, but
Well, I know
the
there's a lot more to it, but
in the broad strokes, you're pretty much spot
So
on.
she's a fraudster and a conspirator.
Yes.
Is what I'm.
Correct.
I just looked her
She-
up.
correct. Martha Stewart went to prison for a stupid error, while all kinds of males skated for similar errors, and
She
congressmen
went
out
to
a
prison for
yin-yang.
something. She went to prison for something that happens on Wall Street every day.
fucking day.
Yeah.
I was
Five-
gonna say
I
this
was
is
gonna say
not
every
that
5
dissimilar.
minutes of every fucking.
No,
day,
this is
so.
not. This
Yeah.
is not this dissimilar.
Yeah.
She knew that there's a formula
Yeah.
for being successful, and she said, "This is the formula I'm going to use. I'm
Right.
going to be like Steve Jobs. I'm going to have that vision where I look like I'm looking into the future at all the time. I can't really talk to you right now. Too busy looking into the future, looking
Yeah.
off just about 10 degrees away from where your eyes are, because
1,000
there's
yards
things
there.
that I can see that you can't see."
Right.
And
right.
I'm going to give. She's selling a fantasy, which is what all sales is in a sense.
Yeah.
She's selling a fantasy to these old men with power that there's this woman. She's going to make them look good because they're helping a woman, and it's not just any woman. It's a woman that they can think of as the daughter that they didn't have. It's the
there.
daughter that has all of the potential and all of the drive. She's practically a son, except she's a daughter.
That's how she.
There's-
That's how she got Mattis.
There are so many layers of bullshit here. And
Yeah.
and in the Valley, when you're dealing with venture capital stuff, this is not that uncommon. Now she's like the alpha of this sort of thing. She's like the Sigma predator when it comes to this
The
sort of thing.
Sigma predator.
But this kind of shit happens all the time because all business startups start with somebody having to pitch something to somebody to get them to give you money.
Yeah, but when there's a sociopathic narcissist doing it, they know all the buttons to push.
I don't think it's a buy. I think this might actually be something that's on a spectrum, and anybody who's out there who's got that hustle element does one or more of these things. The difference is she did it in healthcare, and she ended up losing money from that was given to her by some very powerful people. That is a combination you don't want to do. You don't want to piss off really powerful people, and you kind of can't screw around with healthcare because the liability is different there than other products. A lot of things just fail, and they just disappear with everybody's money, and nobody hears about it. But this is a thing where she couldn't run because she painted herself into a corner by it being healthcare and being very public.
This little
with miser.
Yeah.
But she never had a product. She never had close to a product.
No.
Well, they had a box.
Did she have to pay back the money that she swindled out of people?
No, hon, that's not the way that works.
No, it never.
Why?
Happens. It never
because
happens.
when you buy equity, you are buying a piece of the company for good or ill. If the company goes bankrupt, you don't own anything. If the company makes a lot of money, you get a lot of money.
Well, you know what?
It's speculation, Jenna.
Yeah, people took their chances and they lost their money.
And they got the whole, oh yes, this woman is a genius. They deserve the loss.
Well, to some extent.
Not that it will hurt them, because
to some extent, yes. It depends on where that money came from.
This woman violated a law, which is called the Securities and Exchange Act of 1934, and she also violated another law called the Investment Advisors Act of 1940. These two laws govern they govern how you're supposed to disclose what you're doing to somebody you're selling shares about, and that was the thing that's where she fell afoul of the law, was she was lying to investors and to the public as to the capability of the product she was producing. She never had a product that was worth anything at all. She was an absolute and complete fraud.
I think that's overstating it. Initially, she had an idea, right? At the point where she had an idea and she said, "I want to raise money to go out and develop this idea," she had done nothing wrong. Now, I would agree with you there. I completely agree. So she had a thing. She had a thing, and the point was there reached a point where it was not going to work. And instead of doing what she should have done, which is just given back the money where she could and just folded up and said, it's not going to work. That's what you're supposed to do.
Yes.
She decided, no, I'm just going to play Wizard of Oz, and we're going to pretend that what's happening inside this box is a thing, but instead we're going to have the sample go to a traditional lab, and we're going to do all this stuff, pretend our product did it. And that's the point where she earned herself a spot in jail. Prison.
Yeah. But I don't think she's going to go because, as I said, women are beaten from the moment they're born.
Yeah.
Until they're gratefully crawl into the grave because life is so bad.
Yeah, the patriarchy kept her from succeeding because, of
course it did.
Well, yeah, she relied on the I was misguided by a Svengali kind of I believe.
She blamed Steve.
She blamed Steve Jobs. Is that what you said?
She tried to be like Steve Jobs.
No, she could blame Steve Jobs.
Oh no.
Her idol let her down.
This is not that uncommon. I mean, oddly enough, if she went today, right? Supposing this happened, and she went on Indiegogo, and she pitched this and said, "We are working on proof of concept of this innovative new thing that's going to let you in your home with the prick of a finger diagnose all sorts of things," right?
Yes.
It would totally work. She would raise millions of dollars, not billions, but millions. And at the end of the day, she'd never deliver anything, and that would just be the breaks. I don't know if anybody's read the contract that you basically agree to when you do something like crowdfunding.
Yeah.
But she didn't crowdfund it. She went through this other thing, and what Skep pointed out is right. She broke laws. The
Yeah.
moment she started lying about the thing to keep investors to string them along was the moment she earned a spot in jail. And we cannot have an investment system that allows people to get away with this stuff.
Well, let me tell you, from a person that gets a lot of blood drawn, there's no way why would anyone believe that?
Well, they wanted to believe that. They wanted to believe that they could go. They didn't believe that it would be a home thing, but what they believed was instead of spending a huge amount of money and having 6 vials of blood drawn every time they get a physical, right, to do Chem 7 and all the CBC, all the stuff that they have to do, all the different tests, right? Everybody needs a vial of blood. That you're just going to go to a Walgreens, pay 1/10 as much, and only have to give a couple drops of blood from a pinprick. Everybody wants that. They wanted it to be true. I mean, can't you imagine that there is going to be a point someday when science will let you do that? It's going to be the Star Trek thing. Of course, this is going to happen someday. It just isn't today.
But it's nowhere near close to development today. That's something that my grandchildren will be
able to see.
Okay, I'm going to be a complete dick here.
the beginning of
Jenna, if somebody, 10 years ago, somebody came to you and they said, with modern technology, I can take a tiny amount of your blood and run all the tests that are in the 6 vials. Is there a reason that you can think of why that wouldn't work? I mean, an actual reason, not just like, I don't think it should work. What's the reason why it
every
doesn't
vial
work?
is for a different reason. They need the liquid to go with it for like how those are for my medicine reasons.
They need to make sure that they have enough of a sample, basically.
Yeah, but why? But how? Why is it 10 milliliters as opposed to 1 milliliter, as opposed to 0.1
Are you talking
milliliters?
about a milliliter for each test, or
Well, the point
one
I'm
test with that little bit of blood? Because that won't happen
unless
there's
you're
a
a
reason.
biochemist. You have no. I mean, I don't know.
I was going to say
there's no way that you would know.
I could give you chapter and verse. why it
Exactly,
won't
but
work.
most of the
But
people
that's
who
because
were
I have a
there
background in it.
had
Yeah.
no reason to believe
Right.
that she was lying. She was talking about the future that everybody wanted. You know, and it wasn't one of those things where 99.9% of people know why it won't work today.
Well,
There will be a point where it will work, though.
Yes, but it's
and
not.
Here's the thing. You get this impossible, proposition from this woman saying, this is going to, you're only going to have to provide a couple of drops of blood. And it's true that we do not have testing protocols that would support that. And there's been no development of that kind. If you develop testing protocols that support like that, you could begin to make some progress, research in making those tests need a lot less blood, maybe not a few drops, but it would be much less than what they're using now. I am certain that process could be improved and made more efficient. And you'd have to see where that research and where the development of the engineering around diagnosing things from blood tests gets you. And
Mechanics of
in
it,
25 or 30 or 50 years, you might actually have something where we just take a few, milliliters of blood and test for all kinds of things, get much more out of the samples than what we use. There's never been any push for that, but she basically went out and said, I can spin straw into gold. And nobody, and people were frighteningly negligent, really, at doing their own due diligence that they should have done. They were way too eager to believe her.
Yeah,
no-
they wanted to believe her.
Nobody
They
went-
wanted this to be true.
Nobody
That's
went-
part of what you do when you scam somebody. You need the mark to think that it's their idea, practically.
Yeah,
Oh,
nobody
yeah.
went to a hematologist and asked them. Nobody went to a lab and asked them about centrifuging blood, about separating sera, things like that, to get your varying counts, your varying metabolics, all that kind of stuff. They just didn't. And I mean, it yes, of course it sounds lovely. Everybody who's had a blood draw would like it to last a little less time.
Yeah. Once the
But-
needle's in, I don't care how many vials they take, honestly.
Well,
Oh,
you care after a point.
I have to lie down.
Yeah.
If I'm getting more than one,
Mhm.
I need to lie down.
Really?
I want to know how all you people get away with 1 to 6.
Well, I've donated blood. It's not like I don't know what it's like to lose a pint or two. So,
I just that's my dream. Only giving up 6 vials.
I'm just going to say this. I think if DARPA put their mind to solving this problem in the same way they did detecting chemical agents and doing all the other technology they've done, and they decided to build a lab on a chip, they may not be able to do all the things that are done, in the traditional lab now.
It'd be
But I'll bet
interesting.
you they could, in 10 years or less, build a lab on a chip that would do much of what Elizabeth Holmes wanted to do.
You're
It's
probably
not
what?
impossible.
you're probably it's not a pipe. It's not a pipe dream. It's not a realizable one within the frame she was presenting it. It's the lack of curiosity in the investors
That's really disturbing, isn't it?
that bothers me, because there were people engaged in this and helping her sell it who are people not of limited intelligence.
Yep. I've
Yeah.
reviewed projects like not this particular, not anything medical, but I've reviewed proposals from people for venture capitalists, people seeking money. And part of the problem is there's all this money out there that people want to invest, and it's got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes it's just a case of, does this seem credible, and does this person seem credible? And she was very good at looking credible. And I base this on the fact that a lot of not very stupid people fell for this crap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and how many people in the genuine sciences did she go to? Where was she looking for her investors? You've got to be careful, because the first thing is, this sounds too good to be true. Okay, so you're working off the caveat emptor, and let the buyer beware. I'm going to go to LabCorp and say, explain to me what is done with blood sampling to get blood panels. I want it explained to me to see what the probability of this pitch is. You're talking about a lot of money. That's what I mean about the curiosity. If there had been any fucking curiosity of any level, it could have been relatively easily assuaged. But they didn't evince any. And that I find actually more troubling than a narcissist with a good pitch.
Yeah.
Because for all the naysayers that were out there when Amazon started,
Mhm.
I couldn't understand.
That model can't ever make money.
I couldn't
Remember that?
Yes, I couldn't understand the bitching and the moaning, because I was like, oh my God. And I wasn't invested
The Harvard
in it.
Business Review came out and said, this is why Jeff Bezos will never make a dime.
Oh,
I lost a
God.
lot of money on pets.com. I'm just saying, I bought a lot of pets.com because it's like, who
Oops.
likes going to the store and schlepping big bags of crap around and having it be out of stock? This is a great idea. I'm going to make all kinds of money. I rode
boy.
that stock to zero. It
Chris-
was terrible.
And guess what exists now? Chewy.
And guess what exists now? Chewy.
Yeah, Chewy.
So that's why I say a lot of times
When it
ideas are
hits.
just they're just, it's not that it's the idea that's wrong. It's just that it's either the wrong people with the idea or it's the wrong time for
Wrong
the
time.
idea.
Yeah. Now Amazon, the thing is, the initial investment money was pretty substantial, and people kept saying they're still running in the red. It's going to be a failure. They're still running in the red. And I mean, I can so clearly remember having a conversation in my home with Cree about, I don't understand why 3 years in, these people are bitching about running in the red. Have they looked at any corporate model history, for a big idea like this? It's not going to go to black right away. But when it does, Katie, bar the door. Now, I should have listened to myself and bought the stock. But I don't buy individual stocks. I manage
So
stuff.
let me tell you why you shouldn't be too hard on yourself. Nobody really knew what his fixed to variable cost ratio was going to be.
Yeah.
Nobody thought it was going to be what it ended up being, with a very, very favorable variable cost picture. Nobody thought his business. Nobody really had any idea how his business was going to shake out. That he would have, what his percentage of fixed.
The other
versus
thing they
variable
didn't
costs were.
count on, Skep, the other thing they didn't count on is the massive volume of home computers. Because as we were in that range of the explosion of people bringing computers from work to home for home use, for home accounting, for home whatever, then the transition to
people would
home
become
shopping
much more
occurred.
amenable to the idea.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody
Catalogs
called
were
that.
still-
I don't think anybody called that at all.
I think catalogs were still the thing. Everybody got catalogs.
Hey, you know who didn't call that? Sears.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Big
Paid
time.
for it with their lives.
Big time. And pennies to a certain extent. They were online more aggressively earlier than Sears, but it didn't save them because they couldn't compete.
I did a bunch of Oracle work for pennies up in Frisco, Texas. I didn't have to get on a plane. I actually got to drive to a job. It was fun.
Yeah, they were out ahead of Sears a little bit and a bit more aggressively, but they were.
I tried to talk them out of Oracle. They thought I was crazy. They thought I was a crazy man.
Yeah, well, you were talking about a very, very expensive ongoing contract.
A very expensive mistake they persisted in.
Yeah,
I know a thing about a specific Oracle implementation that might amuse you, Skep. It's
Okay.
actually a fairly big database, but the people in charge of this group, which I can't talk about right here, have decided in their infinite wisdom that highly converged infrastructure is the way to go. So instead of addressing the mandate to upgrade to RHEL 8, because they're currently running RHEL 7, and security-wise that won't pass muster, they've said, no, instead of just replacing these giant database servers with new ones running RHEL 8, we're going to move this into a cluster of virtual machines that's serviced by a pitiful stack of hardware. If they took all of the memory in the highly converged infrastructure, they'd barely be able to start Oracle with the database they're running.
Oh, really? Really? Oh, boy.
And I'm just sitting back going, oh, please, telling my friends, just tell me all about how much this sucks, because I need something to cheer me up. So that's just vicariously watching other people fail is fun.
you're getting your Schadenfreude dopamine hit.
Hey, I've told them, I said, look, you want somebody to come in and fix this crap for you, you've got my number.
People who know me know that I am not a fan of Oracle for a number of reasons. And it's not because the database isn't robust. It's significant players, very sophisticated. I get all that. The company has hosed me over too many times. Fuck them.
You and how many clients?
I'm just done with them. Yeah.
They foster dependency. That's the problem.
Yes.
With
Yes.
Oracle. I can tell you, I
God,
was an
is it
Oracle
ever.
DBA for a while, in addition to my other hats.
I essentially am. Yes, I am too.
I was
Same way.
underqualified. I was underqualified to do what I was doing because I had on this bookshelf, I had an entire shelf of just Oracle books, like how to do, multiple books on how to do backups, how to run it, how to set it up, how to do this, how to do that, how to do all the other things. If
It's
you brought
absolutely terrifying database.
it is, but if I just wanted, MySQL or something like that, it's like 3 books and maybe I get a supply contract from somebody who knows what they're doing. It's like 1/100 the cost.
I need to interrupt. I need to interrupt real quickly. BP needs to go.
Oh, BP.
Yes.
Do you need to chill?
I do. My back is very, very sore, so I need to go lie down.
Right.
But are you going to be around tomorrow night for Wednesdays with Skep?
I will be around tomorrow night for Wednesdays with Skep.
It'll be at 10 p.m. Central for.
I will be here. Absolutely. Just remind me during the day. So
I will.
I don't go old guy on you and forget.
I will. And so that'll be 11 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Central on the Blind Press channel, Coffee Stream, and of course, and we will be back with Star Trek on Saturday. I was right to cancel. The furnace guy didn't finish until after 5, so.
Oh, goodness.
He was fixing, so he had to put in a proper housing collar to go like from the pipes to the furnace.
Yeah, it's lagging. Yeah.
So.
Collar the pipes.
So he did that, but this Saturday, we're gonna do Star Trek, and we're gonna do stuff that's like it's not Starfleet tech that we're gonna talk about. So stuff that other species used that
tech we love from other people.
Yeah. And of course, I'm really pushing my merch right now. Either going to the link tree to get merch or leaving a tip at blindpress.net because we finally ordered the new computer and it's a painful bill that I now have to pay down. So please, for the love of God, buy some merch.
Computers were a mistake.
They were. Suck the lifeblood and the money out of it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, come join us tomorrow night at 10 on Blind Press Channel, and we'll tear them up tomorrow night.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming by. All right. Thanks for being
night,
here.
VP.
We'll see you later, hon.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
And then we were 4. Well, how's everybody doing? We kind of winding down a little bit.
You never got to me on the introductions.
Dead.
Oh, what? I did say the Harry channel. I
did, but you started going around, and it just kind of got.
Yeah, and I never got back.
That's
to you.
okay.
So,
I was just busy trying to find things to amuse you, and then ear blast everybody with that thing.
That was fun.
Yeah, sorry about that. I set the my virtual mixer to change that source to 80%. Sorry about that again.
That was pretty fun.
I'm still trying to get over the idea of using a thumb drive as swap. Like
when you said that, I thought, did I hear him correctly? Somebody actually, that's like those. Remember the antennas that you could order? This will boost your radio, your TV signal by XYZ 10 times, 100 times, whatever it was, and it was just a wire. A wire to some kind of funny looking bent bar.
And, they used to
didn't really do very much at all. Anyway,
they'd package them in with receivers.
Yeah.
A lot of times, and
on the old VHF tubes, a lot of times if you touch the TV, the picture would improve. Who
Oh, yeah.
remembers this? Yeah,
But-
because you're acting as an antenna, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you were like the ground and the antenna for some of those.
Well, yeah, you're the antenna. You know, you're.
Yeah, move over toward the window a little bit, honey.
Yeah, and sometimes the scrambled porn becomes more visible.
Yeah.
Just amazing. Yeah, it used to be a thing that on the TVs in their early cable days, they would essentially have softcore porn on channels. Sometimes it wouldn't be all the time, it'd be just late at night. And then if you tuned to one of those channels and you didn't have the magic decoder box, there would be stuff going on. And you kind of got a hint that something was going on, kind of like knowing that somebody around here is screwing. You just sort of hear that noise. It's kind of one of those things like, oh, something's happening on this channel, but I can't see any of it. But then every now and then, you know, you'd sort of get like a ghost image of something that'd be going
or
on.
Or we get in this weird phase. It would weirdly get in phase with the, you know, the scrambler, and you would get a moment of clarity, and you'd say, oh,
what is that phenomenon? Pareidolia, I think is what it's called, where you see faces, but there aren't faces. I may be mispronouncing it, but I think honestly that might be all there really is to it, that the human brain has some idea of what it's supposed to look like. So as you see the snow, the black and white snow hitting the tube, your brain just kind of fills in the pieces and tries to find patterns in the static.
With a
pareidolia is that is the thing to see patterns in from random stimulus. So, you know, you look into the bottom of a pot, you know, or and you know, that you take out of the cupboard and you see somebody's face. That's when you see faces in everyday objects.
Yeah, I was actually playing with that software I was telling you about, the stuff that uses AI to clean up images. Yeah. And so when I was trying this thing out, because I wanted to see if it worked or not, you know, whether I wanted to give these people money, I was using the one that cleans up images. And I thought, okay, what can I find that's a low res image? Memes. I'll go into my memes folder. Let's see what I can do with my memes folder. And I found this meme, which was Olivia Wilde said, like, you know, I think you're cool, but you're not Liam Neeson getting his shoe tied by Olivia Wilde cool. So you've got Liam Neeson standing there, and then you've got Olivia Wilde, you know, sort of bent down, tying Liam Neeson's shoe. Perfectly wholesome. But I had face detect turned on. And so it thought that the inside of Olivia Wilde's knee looked kind of like a face. So it took Olivia Wilde's face and then put it on top of her knee. So there was like Olivia Wilde with a face and then another face where her knee is supposed to be.
That's pretty awesome.
I was like, holy crap, what the hell just happened? And I turned off face detect and it disappeared, turned it back on. It's like, oh, we think there's a face here, but we don't know what it looks like. Oh, just grab this other face that's nearby and we'll just reuse that. Yeah. It's like, where's
the parameters file?
Yeah, because AI is going to take over everything. Yeah.
Right.
No, it's not.
Yeah, not yet.
Not even close.
It's yeah, we're just getting to the, you know, we don't have the hardware to support AI and AI that could think independently. I don't believe we've invented it yet. I think we will, but I just don't think that's going to happen in the current architecture.
I just thought it was kind of hilarious because I don't think people realize how often AI just fails.
Oh yeah, people do a lot of projecting on things like artificial intelligence. So, you know, they project their fears on it, and you know, make it into something that it's not. I do think that in the long term, and I'm talking about thousands of years of mankind, you will see some sort of, you know, what amounts to artificial intelligence, real art, you know, where it is intelligent the way a sentient being is. I think you'll see that happen.
Yeah, artificial intelligence is really just sort of machine learning mostly. When people who don't work with this stuff think about it, they think you're talking about like an artificial consciousness. Like you're going to walk up and talk to Colossus and say, Colossus, what is the meaning of life? It's like 42. You know, it's not like that.
Klaatu. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Barada Nikto.
Oh God. Stop
It's
it.
funny you knew the other ones.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's a serve, man.
Who doesn't?
It's a cookbook.
it's a cookbook.
It
Don't
has a-
get on. Don't go.
The Outer Limits was so good originally,
Kevin
and the
McCarthy.
reboot was just not as good.
No, I agree.
I think
The
people
original
are.
Outer Limits was outstanding.
I think people are afraid to try. You know, it's too easy to just be safe, to just make a movie that follows the checklist, and that's why I don't blame people for giving money to Elizabeth Holmes. You know, I don't necessarily think it was the wrong idea. I think she was just the wrong person, and it was the wrong time. I don't think less of people who gave her money initially.
Initially, no.
Yeah, well, because think
Later
about this.
into it, yes.
It's all about risk and return, right? It depends on how much they're asking for and what your potential return might be, and then you have to factor in the probability that it'll actually work. And they do this calculus, and I mean, obviously they're wrong in hindsight, but remember, these are not dumb people, and it's really easy for us to pretend that we're so smart and we wouldn't have done what they did.
Hindsight is,
2020.
Not what's done our friend here. But compare what she did with what Bernie Madoff did.
God.
I don't think it's fair to equate those two.
Why?
Which I'm
I
hearing
don't know
people
what Bernie
do
did.
that. Bernie just was running a complete Ponzi scheme, a complete, pay the next sucker off with the money you got from the last sucker. And, that runs out of money eventually. He made some big bets. They had to go his way in a big way to come through, and the market moved against him, and he got busted and sentenced to about 1 million years in prison.
Yeah, a Ponzi scheme is not the same thing as what she did. Anybody who equates them is not making sense. It's closer to the Tycho thing where it's like, are you profitable? Sure. They just made the numbers up. They just they just pretended that they were profitable, and in a sense, that's sort of what she did, but not profit, but viable. She pretended that they had a product, and in fact, the proof of concept failed.
Right.
And they were not going to perfect that product within the lifetime of the amount of money they'd raised.
No,
because their burn rate was just there. I mean, if they had infinite money 100 years from now, they'd be making tricorders, but they don't.
Yeah.
Now, here's a question for you just to lighten the mood. Do you think Snoop Dogg and Elizabeth Holmes will have a TV show?
He's besties with Martha. I don't see him giving up on.
but-
I don't see him giving up on Martha.
Yeah. Charles Schultz
Martha
is
might
dead.
be old news. And
Charles
Elizabeth
Schultz
Holmes
is dead.
might be
He's not drawing Snoopy.
How much does she know about football?
Elizabeth Holmes?
How would I know?
She doesn't know about football.
Now then, Snoop Dogg isn't going to play.
No, thing about Martha Stewart is she was crafty, right? So coming up with new ways to brighten up your cell and new recipes for toilet wine makes her valuable. Elizabeth Holmes does not have any kind of skill set that's going to serve her particularly well in prison, except maybe as a gang leader where she's shanking other bitches in jail.
Yeah, well, there's that.
Well, why?
Martha Stewart actually was teaching a baking class, I think.
And that lady knit her that sweater or that shawl she wore out when she left prison.
Yeah, I mean, she went with minimal complaint, and she taught while she was there the cute little crafty skills that she knows. And then she left, and then she went
Martha is a goddess.
right back to what she was doing. I'll give Martha Stewart this. She did her time. She did her good deed while doing her time in West Virginia. They took a Connecticut, New York maven and shoved her in West Virginia. That could have insulted her, and instead it was like, Y'all want to learn to bake a cake, arrange flowers, set a table. Something actually that it could spark an interest in a woman in a correctional facility, where she could end up working for a catering staff or going into kitchen work as, a pastry assistant or something like that. Working in a flower shop. At least she was doing something that has maybe not the greatest marketable value, but it has
But
some.
it gets
But it has
people
fired up, and if you're from if you bake cakes and you're good at it, or your cake decorating skills look particularly good, you might find work.
and
By the way,
for
I just posted in chat a legal summary of what is likely to happen to Elizabeth Holmes. It really does look like it's a judge would be guided to give her about 25 years. And that's all federal time. So you do 85% of that.
Oh, there goes the beauty.
Yeah. So
But she has a kid, Skep. Who's gonna take care of that
yeah,
kid?
they actually don't care about that.
I know they don't, but that's the play they're
Not the
probably gonna
feds.
try.
Yeah.
so the person that Alec Baldwin murdered had a kid, but no one cares about him.
Well, murder's kind of a
Homicided.
strong term for that.
Homicided. Let's use the term homicided.
Homicided. The person that Alec Baldwin
Killed. And
murdered.
Killed.
Homicided and
murdered. Murder implies motive. Killed. The term is killed.
All right. Shot dead.
Yes. That works. Material facts.
And she was like, what, 24?
No,
But-
she was a little bit older than that.
Well,
He shot 2 people, by the way.
Yeah, Joel, the director, also,
director, yeah.
the bullet went through her into him.
Mm-hmm.
I
Out
mean,
of an antique revolver.
And he claimed on George Stephanopoulos.
Stephanopoulos.
Snuffleupagus.
That's
Yes.
what I said. That he didn't know the gun had gone off for 45 minutes. That thing has a kick. And that's not
right.
what George said, but
Alec is having a very hard time right now.
The voices in his head are all yelling at him all at the same time.
Keeping his story straight.
You should listen to this stream. That'll take his mind.
Because it's all the fault of right-wing media that he's in.
It actually is. Alec, if you're listening, it is. It's our fault.
Yeah, it is.
He did this.
It's our fault.
It's my fault, exactly.
He might be listening to get his mind away from all this, and you just ruined it, Skep.
Hey, well,
glad I could.
Alec,
he is an asshole.
Yes, he is. Alec, who is not the smartest Baldwin brother.
Not even the 5th smartest.
No, and there are only 4 of them.
The only one that's any good is Adam.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
Adam's not a brother, though.
Exactly.
Yes, you're correct.
Stephen is weird.
He called his kid a pig.
Yes, Alec has done a lot of horrible things. It doesn't mean he murdered somebody. But then again,
you say tomato, I say tomato.
Then again, Schadenfreude. This was a hard one for me because I really, really detest Alec Baldwin. I think he is a wretched excuse for a human being.
He's trash.
Well, he's bitter, angry, nasty, vindictive, all kinds of lovely things that he's demonstrated repeatedly. So those are not just my projections on him. But for a moment, I thought, oh God, this is the kind of thing that you would not wish on your worst enemy.
But here's my issue. If it had happened to somebody else, if somebody else had shot dead somebody on the movie team,
Yeah.
he would have gone after them like there was
I
no
understand.
tomorrow.
I understand, but that's whatabouting to some extent. I still think I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy.
You mean the feeling of taking someone's life? And
absolutely.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
Absolutely.
It's a horrible thing.
There is an element of schadenfreude here that I have engaged in on occasion, which is, oh, you're unhappy. You should be. That's a normal human response, Alec. Welcome to the human race. But the erratic, he's been erratic for years.
He's been mean for years too.
He's been
mean-spirited son of a bitch.
I think,
hasn't he punched people just for no reason?
Well, because he doesn't like the paparazzi and et cetera, et cetera. I'm playing devil's advocate here. As I said, I detest the man. He's one of those people that if he were proven guilty in a court of law, I'd be like, I'd Newman all over his ass, but wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. We don't have all the information. We have a lot of rumor. We have a lot of innuendo. We have the utterances out of Mr. Baldwin's mouth, whose lawyer must be relying on heroin now to get up in the morning.
If I was his lawyer,
I
I'd
would
say,
have fired him as a
or I
client.
quit.
I would have fired him as a client. I would have just said, no, I'm not risking my law license on you.
Stop talking, you moron.
Yeah, shut the fuck up. It's an important thing to remember. If anything bad happens in your life where you may or may not be civilly or criminally liable, shut your fucking mouth. Don't talk to anybody.
Take the fifth.
Well, no. You don't have to take the fifth.
I don't mean just take the fifth, but
just shut up. Don't give interviews. Don't sit in your car and film yourself talking about anything. He can't help himself. That man is a picture postcard of a malignant narcissist. He has been for years.
I didn't know it went off for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's bullshit.
In my house.
That's bullshit.
We have guns, and when a new gun is had, and Jamie and my dad are all like, look at my new gun. I watch them as they show no bullets in, the magazine is clear, there's nothing in the chamber.
Yeah. And
this is not them aiming it at anyone. They are just handing it to the other person to see, and they both check it.
Yeah, they check the breech. And
Now, Jamie is military, so he was, but my dad wasn't, and he knows how to do it.
It's not hard.
But it's also not his job. They literally hire somebody who's a professional.
Yes. What about the
job
armor?
It is to make sure that this doesn't happen.
Yes.
If your mechanic screwed up a brake repair, you leave the brake shop, you drive down the road, you're going through a school zone, and instead of stopping, you kill 3 children in a crosswalk because the guy botched your brake repair. Are you responsible for the murder, in quotes, of these 3 kids, or is it the guy who just botched the brake repair? You literally were relying on an expert to do their job.
It's you. It's you. You are responsible.
Yeah, if I was on that jury, I would not hold Jenna responsible for killing those kids.
Right.
No matter how despicable it is.
No.
Wait,
I'm just
what
saying.
kids did I kill?
The law looks
Metaphorical ones.
I don't kill children. I adopt
hypothetical
them.
ones. Yeah.
The way that
Okay,
the law
no.
looks at it is that Jenna has a
Duty of
duty, sort of a duty of care. She has a duty to make sure that, you know, equipment she operates in the public space, the public has a reasonable expectation of security for her to operate her equipment safely in public. And part of that obligation on her is to make sure that it is maintained, you know, to the extent to the meet the reasonable man test in a way that is reasonably, you know, appropriate for that car before taking it out, you know, and that's why we have annual inspections and stuff like that, supposedly.
And if she had done her due diligence, then you get into what Harry is saying, which is there are reasonable men who would think, I went to a certified brake shop. I had the work done. I went out, you know, the brakes worked fine as I was leaving the shop. You know, the fact that
you have to substantiate all that. Obviously. You have to prove that in court.
Well, yeah, which is why you have a camera in your car. If you have any sense anymore, you have some form of GoPro or something like that hooked up so that you can demonstrate that you successfully stopped until the fact that the hose, the tube was not hooked properly and all your brake fluid was leaking out as you were driving along. And then came the crossing guard and the kids. And you apply the brakes and 0 happens. If you've made a number of successful stops up until then, you had no reasonable expectation of brake failure. And witness says your brake lights came on because your electricals aren't fouled. Then it becomes an entirely different matter.
Yeah,
well,
but
cars have become incredibly complicated. Right?
Yeah, they do.
So, you know, right now it's not like a user serviceable thing. If this was back when I was a kid, you know, I knew how to bleed a brake system. I could replace brake shoes. I've done it. I could do all this stuff. But we get into the realm of self-driving cars and, you know, there being some bug in the software and something just sort of happens. You know, unless we're saying that people, the only way to not end up in jail for surezies is to just not leave the house and never do anything. I mean, that's obviously not workable. I don't think that I think that it's entirely reasonable for Alec Baldwin to have thought that there was no risk associated with the gun that he was handed.
If the circumstances are as
Bullshit.
they should have been, yes. That's something we don't know. We don't know the material facts surrounding this. All we have is
I think that's
reportage.
actually, I think what Prospero just said is the most important thing. We don't have material facts. We don't have the
which is weird, by the way.
Well, yeah, it is weird. What I really would like to know, and you know, I've handled a lot of guns in my life, and I can tell when a gun, if I've been handling it, I can tell when it's loaded. I can tell when it's loaded, you know, or unloaded. I have to believe that Alec Baldwin would be. He's a smart guy. He should be able to, you know, if he's holding guns a lot, spends a lot of time holding, he should know if there's ammunition in there or not. Bullets weigh something. It really weighs a gun down.
And a revolver in particular.
And an unloaded gun is lighter. It gets lighter as you shoot it. Now,
I will say this. It depends on the revolver. Since this was a 6-shooter. It can depend on the revolver.
It's a 45, so it's got
Wet-
6 big slugs in it.
Yeah.
Big slugs of lead.
It
It,
should-
really changes weight.
It should have felt
It
very
changes
different
a
when he
lot
picked it.
different.
Not only that, a 6 is so easy to check if there's a bullet in it.
Well, yeah, there is. But then again, that's someone
It's
else's.
called looking at it.
There's someone else's job, Jenna.
It's not my job to
From
look
what
at it.
I've understood from what Hollywood people have said, most Hollywood people check the gun.
Yes.
Well, even if they're told cold gun, they
And they're
check
also
the
never
gun.
supposed to aim at someone. There is a specific target established. It's through camera angle that they make it look as if they are shooting at someone.
When he was asked about that, he said, "Well, she told me to point it at her," or some.
Yeah,
Just
but we don't.
rude.
All I'm saying is, all of this is People Magazine secondhand. All of it. Reports
Yeah.
say he said. This says he said. I mean, we have his bizarre utterances that he said himself.
And those are the ones I'm using. I haven't.
I understand, but I mean, he's made that one thing he's done. And maybe it's rather cleverly. You see, it's certainly poisoned the well of a jury pool.
Jury pool shot.
Oh,
Both criminally and civilly.
Well, he wouldn't have had to do anything to poison me because I'm a firm believer. This is one of the things that I'm really big on is that people need to do their damn jobs.
Yes.
And if you're looking for the thing that basically precipitated in a series of events that led to this person's death, it was the armorer doing this. And I think part of what's happening here, if we're going to be honest with ourselves, and I'm good at mind reading, is that people have a hate boner for Alec Baldwin because he's kind of a terrible person. And the girl is a girl. And she's young. And everybody's basically giving her a free pass.
Mm.
And I feel like the ratio of where the blame is supposed to go is landing far too far on him and not nearly enough on her.
Oh, and the armorer.
Well,
The armorer is what I'm talking about.
The-
That's
yeah,
the
yeah,
her I'm referring
yeah,
to.
Yeah, he's not talking about the victim, although it did sound like you were talking about the victim
Yeah.
here.
Sorry, no, I would never blame a
There
victim.
is
Okay.
there is also
No,
No,
That's
I'm talking
kinda
about I'm talking about the little cutie pie armorer. I mean, she's not that cute, but she's cute enough.
there's
but it
also-
was the AD that handed him the gun. Why was the AD involved? He
But
shouldn't
the
have been
armorer
involved.
the armorer. Everybody's seen the pictures of the armorer, and people naturally want to protect her.
Well,
That's
no.
that's psychology of it, and we're letting
Harry,
her off
what
way
I was
too
saying
easily.
is, why didn't she bring the gun? Why did she hand it to the AD? Why? That's another step in her job she did not do.
Yeah.
She needed to bring the gun,
there were
but she didn't.
there have been, again, in the People magazine innuendo reports, there were issues with the armorer. There were issues with set safety that had already
There had been
there
Yeah.
had been walkouts of staff because they did not feel that a proper job was being done to secure certain matters on the set.
There was
They didn't
live
feel-
ammo on the set for,
Yeah,
for no reason. Like maybe
That's-
after
that's not a
filming,
good thing.
They were using the
screwing
gun
around with
they
the
were
guns.
using gun for
That
target practice.
really is how accidents happen. I know.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep.
They left a live rat. I mean, okay. This is a rookie mistake, but an easy one to make. You've been actually using this old revolver for target shooting. You feel lucky today, Punk? How many shots were fired out of it? Did you clear the breech before you loaded it to take it onto set? You left a live round and loaded the others with blanks. That's that is a distinct possibility that a single live round was left chambered and the rest were loaded with blanks after they'd been playing with a weapon. Handed it off, aim at me, fire at me. Boom. Live round goes off.
Idiots.
I just have too much empathy, I think, because I can imagine myself being in some situation where, I'm relying on other people for some technical something or other.
And they let you down.
And then something goes wrong. And then, you get punished in a sense disproportionately for bad judgment.
Well, it's absolute catastrophe.
Because you were there when the bad thing happened.
Yeah, parents
But
pick
Harry-
parents pick the wrong doctor. The doctor gives them bad advice. The child dies, and then CPS comes in and takes the rest of the children because clearly the parents don't know which doctors to pick. Where does this stop?
Yeah. That's
Harry, wouldn't you have checked the gun?
I don't know if I would have. He's just a dumb guy who pretends to be other people.
here's the other.
He's not your husband.
Here's the problem, though.
Thank
Here's-
God.
Clearly, yes.
Here's the problem with the civil liability. He was a producer on the film.
That does complicate things. And he's not helping himself by saying a bunch of dumb shit
No,
because he thinks that he's still that young guy with that smile that can get out of trouble by just lying a bit.
yeah.
Oh, I didn't.
He's not helping his case, but
No.
I still would probably not make the jury pool because I just, like I said, maybe I have too much empathy, but I would not want to be in that guy's position.
Well, like I said, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, and it was the only time I have ever felt empathy for Alec Baldwin. But as a producer, his civil liability exposure is friggin' enormous.
Well, that I don't
And-
know about because that basically he's like an officer in a corporation. They form a company to make the movie, right?
It depends on who was in charge of what, and who was running the schedule, and who was pushing them into overtime, and who was doing.
Yeah,
this,
there's a
that,
lot of
and the other.
detail here, but it gets
Right.
into the position of his function as an officer of a corporation, essentially.
Well,
And
as-
yes, there are things that, like if he breaks the law, certain laws, obviously he can be held personally responsible, but it
But
gets very, very
personal-
messy, very messy.
Yeah, personal pecuniary or civil liability is highly highly variable, highly guided by law and precedent. There's a
Yep.
ton of law.
And
There is a shit ton of
and
law.
it's going to depend on this. Was in New Mexico, yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
it's
I know
gonna-
enough to know that I don't know the answer.
Yeah, it's gonna depend on a fair bit of New Mexico
Yeah.
civil law too, and civil law governing firearms, because that's the root of the problem.
Burketta Law is going to get a new car out of this. I can tell you,
Yeah,
'cause,
probably.
I learned far more about Wisconsin gun law than I ever wanted to learn just from
Mhm.
from that stupid trial. But it just goes to show that if you don't know the local laws and what they actually mean, don't just believe what CNN says about it,
Oh yeah, and
because they're just a bunch of asshats.
it's extremely important when firearms are involved for people to know what local ordinance, county ordinance, and state ordinances might be.
Yeah.
In some cases, counties, cities, and they all defer to the state, and others it bleeds down to the city or the actual physical county jurisdiction that you're in.
Mhm.
I just want to clarify. She was born in 79.
Who?
So
The director,
the woman that was killed,
Ah, yes.
yeah,
Helena Hutchinson.
the photographer, the cinematographer.
hmm
Yeah, so she's 40.
I don't know why was everyone saying she was 24?
That
The
might-
armorer is 20.
The armorer is 24.
The armorer was 24?
See, if we would just
Yes.
give up on gendered language and pronouns, this would all be so much clearer. If everybody had unique pronouns, then there'd be no misunderstanding.
That's exactly right. That's what everybody needs is their own pronouns.
Yeah,
What a
you could
great
use it as
idea,
like
Harry.
an ID of some sort. What would, if only there were words you could use to describe a person uniquely.
Yeah,
Like their name.
I'm feeling hairy fluid.
Yeah. Alrighty, guys.
Do you identify as hairy or not? Yeah, I do.
Oh man,
I've got a meeting in 4 minutes.
we could probably kick this around all night. I think it's probably a time to bring this one to a halt and to take it out. I don't feel like it's on life support. We've had a pretty good time tonight.
Yeah, okay. I mean, we went 2 hours when we were only in 10.
I was I'm surprised, but sometimes, that's the fun thing about the show.
I just got fired up when they started talking about Theranos and my art rival, Elizabeth Holmes.
Absolutely.
Your arch rival.
She's the apex predator for somebody like me. I'm not kidding.
Yes. But anyway, listen, chat, thank you for coming out and watching us. We do this for you. And of course, we do it because we have a good time too. Thank you, panel, for being my friends, being a part of this, and hanging with me tonight. We'll be back on Minions channel next week. I'll be on the Blind Press show on Blind Press channel, her stream tomorrow night at 10 Central, 11 Eastern. But this is going to do it for tonight, and it's been fun. And we'll do it again tomorrow night on Minions, or not on Minions. Whose channel is going to be on tomorrow night?
Hammer might be on MotZ streams, or he might be on his channel. Okay. I don't know. I would say if you're not in the Discord, get in the Discord, and you can get the skinny there.
Get in the Discord, and I'll make a point of it, or follow me on Twitter. I'll make a point of sharing it out there. But at any rate, thank you for being a part of this. Everybody who was, the zoo is closed. Good night, everybody.
Night.